My name is Lenora Hatch, and I'm 26 years old. 6 months ago, I came home from 4 years of marine research abroad to discover that someone had been living my life. Not a metaphor, not an exaggeration. Someone was using my name, my social security number, my college degree, and my clean record to work a six-figure job, hold a mortgage, and exist as me in every system that matters. That someone was my sister, Gemma, and the person who helped her do it, who handed over my documents, coached her through the details, and told the rest of the family I was never coming back, was my mother. But here's what neither of them accounted for. DNA doesn't lie. And when a routine blood test at a medical clinic flagged that the person living as Lenora Hatch had a completely different genetic profile than the Lenora Hatch on file, the lie that took 6 years to build collapsed in a single afternoon. It collapsed in front of 80 people at a pharmaceutical company awards dinner where my sister was about to receive a trophy with my name engraved on it. If you've ever come home and found that the life you left behind had been stolen, not broken into, not vandalized, but worn by someone else like a coat they'd tailored to fit, this story is for you. Like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the one thing about your identity no one could ever fake? I want to hear it. Let me go back. Before the dinner, before the DNA, before my sister decided that my name fit her better than her own. I grew up in Morehead City, North Carolina, a small coastal town on the Crystal Coast where the air tastes like salt and the economy runs on fishing, tourism, and the marine research station that sits at the edge of the harbor. Our house was a pale blue 2-story on Bridges Street, 3 blocks from the water, with a screened porch where the wind came through smelling like marsh grass and diesel from the charter boats. My father, Frank Hatch, was a boat mechanic who serviced commercial fishing vessels at the Morehead City docks. Big hands, deep tan, a laugh that started in his chest and worked its way up. He smelled like engine grease and salt water, and he washed his hands with orange pumice soap every evening before dinner, scrubbing each finger individually, the way a surgeon would, because he said the boats deserved clean hands in the morning. My mother, Paulette, worked as a school counselor at West Carteret High School. She was organized, careful, precise, the kind of woman who kept files on everything and remembered details other people forgot. She could recall a student's test scores from 3 years prior, or the exact date a form was submitted. That skill, the management of information, the control of records, made her very good at her job. It also made her very good at what she did later, when she decided to help one daughter erase another. Gemma was 4 years older than me. She was loud, impulsive, magnetic, the kind of person who walked into a room and rearranged its energy without trying. She skipped class and still passed. She got caught shoplifting lip gloss at the CVS on Arundel Street when she was 15 and talked her way out of charges by crying in the manager's office. She could charm anyone for exactly as long as she needed them, and not 1 second longer. I was different. I was the kid who sat on the dock with a field guide to tidal invertebrates, sketching hermit crabs in a notebook, while Gemma snuck out to meet boys on Atlantic Beach. I was quiet in the way that gets called mature by adults and boring by siblings. I made good grades because I liked learning, not because I was performing. I didn't need to be seen. I needed to understand things. My father understood me. That's the simplest way to say it. He didn't try to make me louder or more social. He met me where I was, on the dock, in the field guide, in the silence between the waves. He asked me questions about what I was studying. He remembered the Latin names of organisms I'd told him about weeks earlier. He paid attention the way a mechanic pays attention, closely, specifically, to the parts that matter. When I was 9, we took a trip to Beaufort, just the 2 of us, a Saturday morning, 20 minutes down the road. We walked the boardwalk and ended up on a small beach near the Maritime Museum. I found a nautilus shell in the title rack. Perfect. Unbroken. The chambers spiraling inward in a logarithmic curve I didn't yet have the math to describe, but could feel in my hands. "Do you know what's special about a nautilus?" my father asked, kneeling beside me in the sand. It builds new rooms? Chambers. It builds new chambers as it grows, but it never loses the old ones. They stay sealed inside, holding air, keeping the whole thing afloat. He tapped the shell gently. You carry everything you've been, Lenora, even when you become something new. That's how you stay balanced. I kept that shell on my dresser for the next 11 years. Every morning I saw it. Every morning I remembered his knees in the sand, and his finger on the spiral, and his voice saying my name like it meant something specific. Not interchangeable, not transferable. Mine. My father died when I was 14. Pancreatic cancer. 4 months from diagnosis to funeral. The dock where we used to sit was visible from the cemetery where we buried him. I stood there in a black dress that didn't fit right, and I held the nautilus shell in my coat pocket, and I felt the first chamber of my life seal shut behind me. After Frank died, the family restructured the way a building does after you remove a load-bearing wall. Paulette became the center, not just the organizer, but the architect. She decided the roles, she set the terms, and the terms were clear. Gemma was the one who needed help, and Lenora was the one who didn't. Gemma needed help because Gemma was always in crisis. A fender bender at 17, a cheating scandal at school, a boyfriend who got arrested and needed bail money that Paulette provided without discussion. Gemma moved through life like a storm system, damaging, unpredictable, and somehow always forgiven because the cleanup was easier than the confrontation. I didn't need help because I didn't cause problems. I got scholarships. I worked part-time at the Marine Research Station after school. I applied to UNC Wilmington and got in with a full academic ride. Paulette signed the forms, said, "I'm proud of you," and went back to managing Gemma's latest emergency. The imbalance was invisible to everyone except me, and I let it be invisible because naming it felt like complaining. And in our house, the person who complained was the person who created more work for Paulette. I didn't want to be work. I wanted to be the daughter who handled things on her own. So I did, for years, until handling things on my own meant leaving the country, and leaving the country meant leaving my identity unguarded in a house where the most organized woman I knew had already decided which daughter was expendable. I graduated from UNC Wilmington at 20, with a degree in marine biology and a GPA that opened doors I hadn't known existed. My advisor, Dr. Leanne Torres, connected me with a research fellowship at a marine conservation institute in Belize, a 2-year position studying coral reef degradation in the Mesoamerican barrier reef system. It paid modestly, covered housing, and offered the kind of fieldwork most marine biologists wait a decade for. I left in August, 3 weeks after graduation. I packed 2 suitcases, put my important documents in the fireproof box in my childhood bedroom: Social Security card, birth certificate, passport copy, degree certificate, and asked Paulette to keep an eye on things. "Of course," she said, standing on the porch on Bridges Street, arms crossed against the morning chill. "That's what mothers do." I hugged her. I hugged Gemma, who had come to say goodbye smelling like last night's wine and wearing sunglasses indoors. Gemma squeezed me hard, harder than usual, and said, "Go be a genius, Lenora. Someone in this family should." It sounded like admiration. It was inventory. Belize was transformative. I lived in a research station on Ambergris Key, a concrete building with lousy plumbing and incredible sunsets. I dove 4 days a week, cataloging coral species, measuring bleaching rates, tagging sea turtles. I worked with researchers from 6 countries. I ate rice and beans for dinner most nights. I forgot what American television looked like. I called Paulette once a month and Gemma almost never. The calls with Paulette were short. She asked about the weather. I asked about home. She said everything was fine. Gemma was getting herself together. Gemma had a new job. Gemma was doing better. "That's great," I'd say, sunburned and salt-crusted, sitting on the station's porch watching pelicans dive. "Tell her I said hi." "I will, baby. Focus on your work." After Belize, I received a second fellowship. This one at a research institute in Queensland, Australia, studying crown of thorns starfish population dynamics on the Great Barrier Reef. Another 2 years. I accepted immediately. Australia led to a 6-month contract in the Galapagos. The Galapagos led to a collaborative project in Mozambique that lasted 8 months. 4 years. 4 countries. I was building a career that any marine biologist would envy, and every few weeks I'd call Paulette, hear that everything was fine, and go back to my microscope. I didn't check my credit, I didn't monitor my social security activity, I didn't Google my own name. I was living in places where internet was inconsistent and my focus was underwater. My identity, the paperwork version, the American bureaucratic version, existed in a fireproof box in a house on Bridges Street, under the care of a mother I trusted completely. That trust was the most expensive mistake I've ever made. Here's what happened while I was gone. I reconstructed it later, piece by piece, from records and testimony and the specific, reluctant admissions of a mother who had run out of lies. Gemma's life collapsed the year after I left. She'd been working as a bartender at a place on Atlantic Beach, cash tips, late nights, the kind of job that accommodated her lifestyle. In November, she was arrested for DUI after crashing her car into a mailbox on Evans Street at 2 a.m. Blood alcohol, 0.14. She lost her license for a year. 3 months later, she was caught shoplifting, not lip gloss this time, but $200 worth of merchandise from a department store in Jacksonville. Misdemeanor theft, probation. 5 months after that, a check fraud charge. She'd written checks from a closed account to cover rent. More probation. A criminal record that was now 3 entries long and growing. With a DUI, a theft conviction, and a fraud charge, Gemma was unemployable in any position that required a background check. No office job, no sales position, no professional career of any kind. She was 26 years old with a record that would follow her for decades. Paulette saw the trajectory. Paulette, the school counselor who understood systems, who knew how records worked, who kept files on everything, saw her older daughter spiraling toward a future with no employment, no stability, no recovery. And Paulette made a decision. She opened the fireproof box in my childhood bedroom. She took out my social security card, my birth certificate, and my degree certificate from UNC Wilmington, and she gave them to Gemma. I don't know the exact conversation. I've imagined it 1,000 times. Paulette sitting at the kitchen table with the documents fanned out in front of her, Gemma across from her, both of them looking at the paperwork that represented my life, my name, my education, my clean record, laid out like a wardrobe for someone else to put on. "Lenora's not coming back," Paulette told the family. She said it to my Aunt Diane, to my Uncle Roger, to the neighbors who asked. "She's doing research overseas. She's happy there. She's not planning to return to the States." She said it so often and so consistently that it became family canon. Lenora lives abroad now. Lenora's doing important work. Lenora's moved on. The narrative was clean, simple, and impossible to verify. Because I was in Belize, then Australia, then the Galapagos, then Mozambique, calling once a month and hearing, "Everything's fine." Gemma became Lenora Hatch. Not overnight, gradually, the way a tide comes in. She applied for a driver's license using my documents. She applied for jobs using my degree. She passed background checks because my background was clean. She got hired as a pharmaceutical sales representative at a company called Meridian Pharma, a regional firm based in Raleigh with offices across the Carolinas. She was good at it. Gemma was always good at performing. Charming clients, commanding rooms, making people believe she was whoever she said she was. Within 2 years, she was a top performer. Within 3, she was being considered for regional awards. She bought a condo in Raleigh under my name. She opened credit cards under my social security number. She built an entire professional life, salary, benefits, mortgage, reputation, on the foundation of my identity. And Paulette maintained the cover. When relatives asked about Lenora, Paulette had answers. When mail arrived at the Bridges Street house addressed to Lenora Hatch, Paulette forwarded it to Gemma's condo in Raleigh. When I called from overseas, Paulette kept the conversations short, surface level, and carefully steered away from anything that might reveal what had happened. "How's Gemma doing?" "She's great. New job. Really thriving." Thriving. As me. The Nautilus shell, the one from Beaufort, the one my father gave me, the one that sat on my childhood dresser for 11 years, was gone when Gemma moved out. She took it. She put it on the desk in her condo in Raleigh, in the office where she worked as Lenora Hatch, beside a framed copy of my college degree with my name on it. She didn't just steal my identity. She took the last object my father gave me and used it as decoration in the life she'd built on my name. I came home in March of this year. The Mozambique contract ended. I was 26, tired in the good way, ready to build something permanent in the country where I was born. I had a plan. Apply for a position at the Duke University Marine Lab in Beaufort, find an apartment, reconnect with home. I flew into Raleigh-Durham International Airport on a Tuesday with 2 suitcases and 4 years of research publications, and the particular optimism of a person who doesn't yet know that the ground they're about to stand on has been removed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What I found when I came home, and what it took to get my life back, that's the part that changes everything. The first sign was at the rental car counter at Raleigh-Durham Airport. I handed the clerk my driver's license, valid, unexpired, the one I'd renewed by mail through the NCDMV while I was in Australia. She typed my information into the system, frowned, typed again, and said, "Ma'am, this license number is flagged. It's showing as a duplicate issuance." What does that mean? It means there's another license in the system with the same identity credentials. Same name, same social security number, different photo. Different photo. I stood at the counter with my suitcases and my jet lag, and I felt the first crack form. Not in the ground, but in the assumption that the life I'd left behind was still mine. The clerk couldn't rent me a car. She suggested I contact the DMV. I took a cab to a hotel on Hillsborough Street, checked in using my passport, and spent the next 3 hours on the phone. The DMV confirmed it. A second driver's license had been issued under my name and social security number 4 years ago. The address on the second license was in Raleigh, a condo on Glenwood Avenue. The photo on file was not mine. I called Paulette. "Mom, something's wrong with my license. The DMV says there's a duplicate." "Lenora, you just got home. Let's not worry about paperwork today. Why don't you come to Morehead City and—" "Mom, someone else has a license with my name and social security number. The DMV says the address is in Raleigh. Do you know anything about this?" Silence. The kind I'd learned to recognize in other stories. Not confusion. Calculation. The silence of a person selecting which door to open. "There might have been a clerical mix-up," she said. "You know how government systems are. I'll look into it." "What do you mean you'll look into it?" "Lenora, please. You just landed. Come home. We'll sort everything out." I didn't go home. I went to the Social Security Administration office on New Bern Avenue the next morning. Same plastic chairs, same wait, same fluorescent lights. A clerk named Jerome pulled my records and confirmed what the DMV had suggested. My social security number was active on multiple accounts. Credit cards, a mortgage. Employment records showing continuous income for 4 years at a company called Meridian Pharma. "I've been out of the country for 4 years," I said. "I don't work at a pharmaceutical company. I'm a marine biologist." Jerome looked at me with the careful blankness of a government employee who has seen enough identity theft to know when one is sitting in front of him. "Ma'am, I'd recommend filing an identity theft report with the FTC and contacting local law enforcement. Someone has been using your credentials extensively." Extensively. A mortgage, credit cards, employment. 4 years of someone living inside my paperwork, walking through the world wearing my name. I filed the FTC report that afternoon. I pulled my credit report that evening, sitting on the hotel bed with my laptop balanced on a pillow. The report was 16 pages long. Accounts I'd never opened, addresses I'd never lived at, a credit score that was actually excellent, better than it had any right to be, because whoever was using my identity was making payments on time and managing the accounts responsibly. That detail, the responsible management, was what told me it wasn't a random thief. Random identity thieves max out cards and disappear. This person was maintaining the identity, living in it, building a career on it. This was someone who intended to be me permanently. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the hotel bed staring at the ceiling, and I ran through the list of people who had access to my social security card, my birth certificate, and my degree certificate. The list was short. It had 2 names on it. At 6 a.m., I drove to Morehead City. 90 minutes on Highway 70 through the coastal plain, past tobacco fields and pine forests and the Croatan National Forest. I pulled into the driveway on Bridges Street at 7:32 a.m. The pale blue house looked the same. Screened porch, marsh grass smell, charter boat diesel on the wind. Paulette opened the door in her bathrobe. She looked at me, and I watched something move across her face that wasn't surprised at seeing her daughter. It was the expression of a woman who has been expecting a specific knock on a specific door for a long time and has just heard it. "Where are my documents?" I said. No greeting, no hug. "The fireproof box, where is it?" "Lenora, where is the box, Mom?" She stepped aside. I walked through the house, past the kitchen, past the living room, up the stairs to my old bedroom. The room was the same, bed made, curtains drawn, the desk where I'd studied for the SATs, the dresser where the Nautilus shell used to sit. The shell was gone. The fireproof box was in the closet, on the top shelf where I'd left it. I pulled it down, opened it, empty. No social security card, no birth certificate, no degree certificate, nothing. I walked back downstairs. Paulette was in the kitchen, standing by the counter, her hands gripping the edge. Not making coffee, not sitting down. Just standing there with the posture of a woman bracing for impact. "Where are they, Mom?" "Lenora, sit down. Let me explain." "Where are my documents?" "Gemma has them." 3 words. The entire architecture of the lie, compressed into 3 words. Gemma has them. Not, they were stolen. Not, there was a mix-up. Gemma has them. Given. Provided. Handed over. "For how long?" Paulette closed her eyes. "Since the year you left. You gave Gemma my identity. She was in trouble, Lenora. Her record, she couldn't get hired anywhere. She couldn't get an apartment. She was going to end up on the street. I did what I had to do. You gave her my social security number, my degree, my name. You weren't using them. You were overseas. You said you might not come back." "I never said that. I said I was doing research. You told everyone I wasn't coming back. That was your story, Mom, not mine." Paulette's grip on the counter tightened until her knuckles went white. Her chin dropped. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. The evidence was in the empty box, in the missing shell, in the 16-page credit report sitting in my bag. I turned around and walked out of the house on Bridges Street. I didn't slam the door. I closed it behind me with the deliberate, controlled pressure of a person who knows that what just happened cannot be slammed away. It can only be documented, investigated, and exposed. I drove back to Raleigh with the empty fireproof box on my passenger seat, and I started planning. The first thing I did was find out exactly what Gemma had built with my name. Not emotionally. I'd deal with that later. Procedurally. I needed the full blueprint before I could dismantle anything. I spent a week in the Raleigh Public Library on Fayetteville Street, using their computers and printers because my own digital life was compromised. I pulled every record I could access legally: credit reports, property records, employment databases. The picture that emerged was meticulous. Gemma hadn't just borrowed my identity, she'd renovated it. She held a mortgage on a 2-bedroom condo on Glenwood Avenue, purchased 18 months ago for $243,000. She had 3 credit cards with a combined limit of $34,000, all current, all responsibly managed. She had a valid North Carolina driver's license with her photo and my name. She was employed at Meridian Pharma as a senior sales representative covering the Triangle region: Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill. Her salary, based on the tax records I was able to access through the IRS identity theft process, was approximately $96,000 per year plus commissions. She'd been living as me for 6 years. She'd filed taxes as me. She'd built credit as me. She'd walked through the world wearing my name like a coat that fit perfectly because it was tailored from my measurements. I needed help. Not just legal help. I'd already contacted an attorney, a woman named Gloria Voss in Raleigh who specialized in identity fraud. I needed someone inside the system Gemma had built, someone who could verify the fraud from the institutional side. That person found me before I found her. Ren Castellano called me on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the hotel room on Hillsborough Street, eating a granola bar and reviewing property records, when my phone rang from an unknown Raleigh number. "Is this Lenora Hatch?" she asked. Her voice was crisp, careful, the voice of someone choosing each word with professional precision. "It is. Who's calling?" "My name is Ren Castellano. I'm an HR compliance investigator at Meridian Pharma. I'm calling because we have a situation that involves your identity, and I need to verify some information. Would you be willing to meet in person?" I was at her office the next morning. Meridian Pharma's regional headquarters was in a glass and steel building on Perimeter Park Drive. Ren met me in a conference room on the 4th floor. A woman in her mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, tailored blazer, a legal pad already half filled with notes. She had a pen in her hand, and she didn't put it down for the entire meeting. "I need to be transparent about why I contacted you," Ren said. 3 weeks ago, the employee we know as Lenora Hatch was required to complete a medical screening for a company health initiative. Part of the screening included a standard blood panel processed through a regional lab. The lab cross-referenced the results against existing medical records associated with the Social Security number on file. She paused, looked at me directly. The blood type didn't match. The genetic markers flagged a discrepancy. The person who submitted the blood sample and the person whose medical history is on file under that Social Security number are not the same individual. There it was, the detail Gemma couldn't fake. She could steal my name, my number, my degree, my credit. She could wear my identity like a second skin for 6 years without detection. But she couldn't change her blood. She couldn't alter her DNA. The one thing about identity that is truly, biologically, unfakeably yours, she couldn't replicate it. "I've been investigating internally for 2 weeks," Ren continued. "I've confirmed that the employee's photo on file doesn't match the photo on the original driver's license associated with the Social Security number. I've confirmed the degree from UNC Wilmington, which the employee listed on her application, was awarded to a person whose university records include a photo that matches you, not her." Ren set her pen down. First time since I'd walked in. "I believe the person employed at this company as Lenora Hatch is not Lenora Hatch. I believe you are, and I need your help to confirm it." I showed Ren everything: my passport, my university ID, which I'd kept in my wallet through 4 years of international research, my fellowship certifications from Belize, Australia, the Galapagos, Mozambique, all bearing my photo, my name, my credentials. I showed her the FTC identity theft report, the empty fireproof box, the credit report. Ren reviewed each document in silence. Then she said, "I need to tell you something personal because I think it's relevant to how I'm handling this." She told me about her brother, younger, charming, reckless, a pattern I recognized immediately. He'd stolen their parents' retirement savings over the course of 3 years. Small withdrawals, forged signatures, redirected statements. When Ren discovered it, the family closed ranks. Her parents refused to press charges. Her aunts and uncles said she was tearing the family apart. She reported it anyway. Her brother was charged. Her parents didn't speak to her for 2 years. "I lost most of my family over it," Ren said. "But I kept my integrity. And your sister's employer deserves to know that the person they're paying and promoting and about to give an award to isn't who she says she is." "An award?" Ren nodded. Meridian Pharma's annual regional dinner is in 3 weeks. The Southeast Sales Excellence Award. The recipient this year is the employee we know as Lenora Hatch, your sister. She's being honored in front of 80 people, executives, clients, colleagues. She'll receive a trophy with your name on it. A trophy with my name, given to a woman who stole it. I can handle this quietly, Ren said. Internal investigation, termination, referral to law enforcement. Nobody outside this building needs to know. Or, I said. Ren looked at me. The pen was back in her hand, clicking softly against the legal pad. Or you attend the dinner, and when they call the name Lenora Hatch, the real Lenora Hatch is in the room. I thought about my father on the beach in Beaufort, the nautilus shell in my hand, the chambers that seal shut but never disappear. I thought about Gemma taking that shell from my dresser and putting it on a desk in a condo bought with my name. I thought about Paulette standing in the kitchen saying, "You weren't using them." "I'll be at the dinner," I said. Ren nodded once. "I'll make sure you're on the guest list." The Meridian Pharma Southeast Regional Dinner was held on the second Friday of April at the Umstead Hotel in Cary, a low-slung modernist building surrounded by longleaf pines, the kind of venue that corporate events use when they want the evening to feel important without saying so explicitly. Valet parking, lobby with fresh flowers, a ballroom with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto a manicured garden lit with landscape lighting. 82 guests. I knew because Ren had sent me the event program, a glossy 8-page booklet listing the evening's agenda, the award categories, and the honorees. Page 6. Southeast Sales Excellence Award. Recipient, Lenora Hatch. My name. Printed in gold ink on heavy cardstock. Belonging to a woman who had never taken a single biology class, never published a research paper, never earned the degree she'd listed on her application, but who had, by all accounts, been an excellent pharmaceutical sales representative, charming, persistent, high-performing. Gemma had always been good at selling. She'd just never had a clean enough record to do it professionally, until she used mine. I arrived at 6:40 p.m., black dress, simple flats. My hair was shorter than it had been when I left the country. Salt water and sun will do that over 4 years. I carried a small bag with 3 items, my passport, my university ID with photo, and a printed copy of the DNA discrepancy report that Ren had obtained from the medical lab. Ren met me in the lobby. She was wearing a charcoal suit and an expression of controlled professionalism that I recognized as the face of someone who has prepared extensively for something they hope goes smoothly but suspect won't. "She's here," Ren said. "Table 4, center of the room." "Who else knows?" "The HR director, Martin Cole. He's been briefed. He has a copy of the full investigation file. He's agreed to let the evening proceed normally until after the award is presented. At that point, he and I will manage the situation with the employee directly." "And me?" "You're listed as a guest of mine. Your name tag says W. Castellano +1. You'll sit at table 11, near the back. When the award is announced, you don't need to do anything. Just be here, be visible. The rest will happen on its own." I nodded. Ren touched my arm briefly. Not a comforting gesture, a bracing one, and we walked into the ballroom. The room was arranged with round tables seating 8, white linens, low centerpieces of greenery and candles. A small stage at the front with a podium, a screen for the presentation, and a table displaying the evening's awards, glass trophies on acrylic bases, each engraved with the recipient's name. I saw the trophy from across the room. Southeast Sales Excellence, Lenora Hatch. My name in etched glass, catching the light from the chandeliers. Then I saw Gemma. She was at table 4, exactly where Ren said she'd be. She was wearing a burgundy dress, fitted, expensive, the kind of dress a woman buys when she knows she's going to be called to a stage. Her hair was longer than I remembered, blown out in the loose waves she'd always envied on other women and could now afford to maintain on a $96,000 salary. She was talking to the man beside her, a colleague, from the way they interacted, laughing at something, her hand resting on the stem of a wine glass. She looked successful, confident, settled. She looked like a woman who had built something real, except none of it was built on her own foundation. It was built on mine. I sat at table 11 with Ren and 6 Meridian employees I didn't know, regional managers, a marketing coordinator, a logistics director. They introduced themselves. They asked what I did. I said I was in marine research, visiting from the coast. They nodded politely and moved on to discussing quarterly numbers. Nobody at the table knew why I was really there. Dinner was served at 7:15, filet mignon with roasted asparagus and truffle mashed potatoes. I ate mechanically. The food was excellent, and I tasted none of it. My eyes kept drifting to table 4, where Gemma was performing the role she'd been performing for 6 years. Lenora Hatch, pharmaceutical professional, competent and charming, and entirely fictional. At 8 o'clock, the program began. The regional vice president, a man named Douglas Chen, took the stage. He welcomed everyone, reviewed the year's achievements, thanked the teams. He presented 2 other awards, a teamwork award and a client satisfaction award. Applause, handshakes, photos. Then he said the words I'd been waiting 3 weeks to hear. And now, our top honor of the evening. The Southeast Sales Excellence Award recognizes the individual who has demonstrated outstanding performance, client relationships, and professional integrity. This year's recipient has been with Meridian for 4 years and has consistently exceeded targets while building lasting partnerships across the Triangle region. Please join me in congratulating Lenora Hatch. Applause. Warm, enthusiastic. 82 people clapping for a woman they believed was who she said she was. Gemma stood. She smoothed her burgundy dress. She smiled, the wide, confident, room-filling smile I'd grown up watching from the quieter side of every room we'd shared. She walked to the stage. She shook Douglas Chen's hand. She accepted the trophy, glass and acrylic, my name etched into the surface. She held it in both hands and turned to face the room. And then she saw me. I was standing. Not dramatically. I'd simply risen from my chair at table 11 when her name was called. I was standing in the back of the room, my hands at my sides, my face visible under the ballroom lighting. I wasn't holding a sign. I wasn't making a gesture. I was just there, present. The face that matched the name on the trophy she was holding. Gemma's smile froze. Not faded, froze. The muscles held their position, but the life behind them drained away. Her eyes locked on me, and I watched the recognition happen in stages. First confusion, then placement, then understanding, then fear. 4 expressions in 3 seconds, each one overriding the last like layers of paint being scraped away to reveal the raw wood underneath. The room didn't notice immediately. 82 people were still clapping, still looking at the stage, still celebrating a woman they believed was Lenora Hatch. But Gemma had stopped moving. She was standing at the podium holding the trophy and staring at the back of the room with the expression of a person who has just seen the one thing that cannot exist inside the world they've constructed. Douglas Chen leaned toward the microphone. "Lenora, would you like to say a few words?" Gemma didn't respond. Her mouth opened slightly. The trophy tilted in her hands, not dropped, just shifted, the way something shifts when the grip holding it becomes uncertain. Rachel Nguyen, a senior account manager at Table 3 who had worked alongside Gemma for 2 years, followed Gemma's gaze to the back of the room. She looked at me, then at Gemma, then at me again. I watched her brow furrow, the expression of someone whose visual processing is detecting an error, but whose brain hasn't named it yet. Martin Cole, the HR director, was at Table 2. He'd been watching the stage, but when the pause stretched past 5 seconds, he looked at Ren. Ren gave him a single nod. Martin stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked calmly toward the stage. Gemma found her voice. Thank you. I'm honored. This means so much to— "Excuse me," Martin said, reaching the podium. He spoke quietly, close to Gemma's ear, but in the silent room his words were partially audible. "We need to speak with you privately. Now." Gemma looked at Martin, then at me, then at the trophy. "I don't understand," she said. but she did. Her voice had the quality of someone reciting confusion rather than experiencing it. She understood exactly what was happening. The only question was whether to fight or run, and Gemma, who had spent her life choosing performance over honesty, defaulted to performance. "There must be some misunderstanding," she said, louder now, turning back to the microphone. "I'm not sure what—" "Ms. Hatch," Martin said, his voice firm, "please step away from the podium." The room shifted. 82 people recalibrating. The applause had died completely. Chairs were creaking as people turned. The pleasant corporate energy of the evening was being replaced by something electric and uncomfortable. Rachel Nguyen stood up at table 3. She was looking at me with full attention now, studying my face the way you study a document you've been told to verify. Then she looked at the event program on her table, then back at me. Her mouth formed a word she didn't say out loud, but I could read it. Wait. A man at table 6, later I learned his name was Darren Kelly, a regional client manager, leaned toward his colleague and whispered something. The colleague's eyes went wide. The whisper traveled. Within 30 seconds, at least a dozen people in the room were looking at me, then at Gemma, performing the comparison that needed no explanation. 2 women, 1 name, different faces. Gemma stepped back from the podium. She was still holding the trophy. Her hands were shaking. I could see it from 30 feet away, the slight vibration in the glass catching the light. "I can explain," she said to Martin. The universal sentence of someone who cannot explain. "Not here," Martin said. "Conference room B. Now." Ren stood and walked toward the stage. As she passed my table, she paused. "Come with me," she said quietly. "The HR director wants you present for the identification." I followed Ren to the front of the room. As I walked through the center aisle between the tables, I passed within 6 feet of Gemma. She was standing beside the podium, Martin's hand hovering near her elbow, the trophy still clutched against her chest. She looked at me. I looked at her. We were 4 feet apart, closer than we'd been in 6 years. I could see the details, the makeup, the blown-out hair, the burgundy dress, the glass trophy with my name on it pressed against her body like a shield. "Lenora," she said, my name in her mouth, the name she'd been saying at sales meetings and client dinners and in the mirror every morning for 6 years. Except now she was saying it to the person it belonged to. I didn't respond. I just stood there, existing, being the face that matched the name, being the evidence that could not be manufactured or managed or performed away. Gemma's grip on the trophy loosened. She looked at it, at the etched letters, Lenora Hatch, and something in her expression crumbled. The last wall. Martin guided her toward the side exit. Ren followed. I followed Ren. As we left the ballroom, I heard the room behind us erupt, not in chaos, but in the specific murmur of 80 people processing the same impossible realization simultaneously. Chairs scraping, voices rising. Rachel Nguyen's voice clear above the rest. She wasn't, who was that? The conference room meeting lasted 45 minutes. Martin, Ren, Gemma, me, and Gloria Voss, my attorney, who had been on standby in the hotel lobby and arrived within 4 minutes of Ren's text. Gemma denied it for the first 11 minutes. She said I was impersonating her. She said I was mentally unstable. She said I'd been estranged from the family and was now trying to cause harm. She performed so convincingly that for a brief, sickening moment, I saw Martin hesitate. Then Ren opened her laptop. She placed it on the table facing Gemma and showed her 3 things. The DNA discrepancy report, 2 different genetic profiles associated with the same social security number. The UNC Wilmington student photo from the registrar's office, my face, not Gemma's. And the criminal record for Gemma Marie Hatch, DUI, theft, check fraud. The record she'd tried to outrun by wearing my name. Gemma looked at the screen. Her performance collapsed. Not dramatically, not with tears or shouting, but with the slow deflation of someone whose last support has been removed. She sat back in her chair and said nothing for a long time. "Does Mom know you're here?" she finally asked. "Does it matter?" She closed her eyes. "I was going to give it back. Eventually. When I'd saved enough. I just needed 6 years, Gemma. You needed 6 years of my name, my credit, my degree, my career. You took my Nautilus shell. You hung my diploma on your wall. You weren't borrowing my life. You were living it." She didn't respond. She folded her hands in her lap and stared at the table the way Paulette had stared at the counter in the kitchen on Bridges Street. The posture of a woman who has run out of rooms to perform in. Martin informed her that her employment was terminated immediately. Wren would coordinate the collection of company property. The matter would be referred to law enforcement. Gemma stood. She left the trophy on the conference room table, my name in etched glass, face down on the polished wood. She picked up her clutch. She didn't look at me again. She walked out of the conference room and through the hotel lobby and into the parking lot, and I watched her burgundy dress disappear through the automatic doors. Back in the ballroom, the dinner had effectively ended. Most guests were standing in clusters, talking quietly. Rachel Nguyen found me as I re-entered the room. She looked at me for a long moment. "You're the real one," she said, not a question. "I am." I sat next to her for 2 years. 2 years, and I never. She stopped, pressed her lips together. "I'm sorry." "You didn't know. Nobody did." Darren Kelly approached from across the room. He shook my hand firmly. "I've never seen anything like that in 20 years of corporate events. Are you okay?" "I'm getting there," I said. Douglas Chen, the regional VP, found me last. He was visibly shaken, the man who had just presented a company award to a fraud. "Ms. Hatch, the real Ms. Hatch. I don't know what to say. This is a failure on our part. The background check, the screening, She had perfect documents," I said. "She had my documents. You couldn't have known." He nodded. He didn't look reassured. Gemma was charged 3 weeks later. Identity theft, fraud, criminal impersonation, filing false documents. The charges carried a combined maximum of 12 years, though Gloria Voss told me a plea deal was likely, 3 to 5, possibly with partial suspension if restitution was made. I didn't attend the arraignment. I didn't need to. I'd already stood in the room that mattered. The courtroom was paperwork now. The awards dinner was the moment the lie ended, and I'd been present for every second of it. Paulette called me twice in the week after the dinner. I didn't answer the first time. The second time, I picked up, not because I was ready, but because the silence between us was starting to feel like another locked room, and I'd had enough of those. "Lenora." Her voice was thin, not the organized, controlled voice of a school counselor, the voice of a woman standing in rubble she'd helped create. "Hi, Mom. I heard what happened at the dinner. Gemma called me." "Of course she did." Silence. I let it sit. "I know you want me to explain," Paulette said. "I've been trying to find the words." "Try." She exhaled. Long. Shaky. "Gemma was drowning. The DUI, the record. She couldn't get hired anywhere. She was sleeping on my couch. She was talking about hurting herself. I was scared. And your things were just sitting there in that box, unused, while you were on the other side of the world doing incredible work, and I thought—" She stopped. Started again. "I thought I could give her a chance without taking anything from you. I thought you'd never know." "You thought I'd never come home. I thought by the time you did, Gemma would have built enough of her own life to give yours back. I thought it was temporary." 6 years, Mom. 6 years isn't temporary. It's permanent. You told the family I wasn't coming back. You forwarded my mail. You gave her my shell. Dad's shell." Paulette made a sound. Not a word, something lower, the sound of a person absorbing an impact they can't deflect. The shell was hers to take, Paulette whispered. I didn't give, you gave her everything else. The shell was just the last piece, the piece that wasn't yours or hers. It was mine. It was Dad's and mine. And she put it on a desk in a condo she bought with my name. Long silence. When Paulette spoke again, her voice cracked. I failed you. I chose the daughter who was screaming over the daughter who was quiet, because quiet looked like okay, and I told myself that was enough. It wasn't an apology, it was a diagnosis. Accurate, clinical. The school counselor analyzing her own case file. She could identify the pattern, she could name the error. But naming it and repairing it are different things, and repair requires something Paulette had never offered me: sustained, unmanaged, uncomfortable attention. I need time, Mom. A lot of it. Don't call me. I'll call you when I'm ready. Okay. Almost inaudible. Lenora? Yeah? I'm glad you came home. I hung up. I sat with the phone in my hands for a long time, then I set it down and went to work. The Nautilus shell came back to me through an unexpected channel. When Gemma's condo was searched during the investigation, her personal effects were cataloged. Gloria Voss filed a motion to recover items belonging to me, the shell, my framed degree, and several documents from the fireproof box. The motion was granted. A box arrived at my new apartment, a one-bedroom in Beaufort, 10 minutes from the Duke Marine Lab where I'd been offered a research position, on a Tuesday afternoon. I opened it on the kitchen counter. The degree was there, still framed. The documents were there, sorted into folders by Gemma's hand, organized, meticulous, the filing habits of a woman who had maintained someone else's identity with the precision of an accountant. And the Nautilus shell. I picked it up. It was the same. The logarithmic spiral, the sealed chambers, the smooth outer curve worn by years of handling. It had sat on Gemma's desk for 6 years. It had been touched by her hands, looked at by her eyes, absorbed into her performance of being me. But it hadn't changed. The chambers were still sealed. The structure was still intact. It had carried everything it had been, through everything that was done to it, and it was still whole. I set it on my desk at the research station. Beside my laptop, my field notebooks, and a jar of sand samples from the Beaufort Inlet. It sat there the way it had sat on my childhood dresser, quietly, specifically, holding more meaning than its size suggested. Last Saturday, I walked the boardwalk in Beaufort, the same boardwalk my father and I had walked when I was 9. The beach near the Maritime Museum was smaller than I remembered. Erosion had narrowed it over 17 years. But the tide still left rack lines of shells and seaweed, and the water still smelled like salt and thyme. I didn't find another Nautilus. You don't find 2 in one lifetime. But I stood where my father had knelt beside me in the sand, and I heard his voice, not as a memory, but as a fact, embedded in me the way the old chambers are embedded in the shell. You carry everything you've been, Lenora, even when you become something new. I carry it. The girl on the beach, the student at UNC Wilmington, the researcher in Belize and Australia and the Galapagos and Mozambique, the woman who came home and found her name living in someone else's mouth, the sister who lost a sister, the daughter who lost a mother, not to death, but to a choice. I carry all of it, and I'm building the next chamber. My name is Lenora Hatch. It's mine. It was always mine. And nobody, not a sister, not a mother, not a system, not a trophy in etched glass, gets to wear it but me. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who's ever had to fight to be themselves. Subscribe if you haven't. And if you've ever had to reclaim something that was taken from you, your name, your story, your identity, tell me about it in the comments. I want to know how you built your next chamber.